Hello and welcome to Newsclick. In last few days, we have seen a series of events taking place like attack on cattle traders in Jharkhand who were brutally killed later, also beating of 3 students in Delhi because they didn't chant a slogan. There is also entire debate growing up around the issue of nationalism. The students community is on the streets protesting against the government, be it in Delhi or in Hyderabad Central University. To discuss the issue, we have with us Brinda Karat, Polit Bureau member of the CPIM. Welcome to Newsclick. You also went to Jharkhand where the 2 cattle traders were brutally beaten and then hanged. And then yesterday such attack took place in Delhi where 3 students were beaten just because they didn't chant something. So how do you describe this situation?
It is a very, very alarming situation, and it is not happening in just one state. So clearly this is a strategy of the Sangh Parivar to spread communal polarization on selected slogans which they believe will be able to arouse so-called Hindu sentiment. So it's a very clear strategy and selected slogans. Now everybody knows that the cow and the myths of the holy cow have certainly been a very powerful instrument in communal mobilization for the last at least 100 years. And in the present context, you have a Prime Minister who is giving the slogan and saying his mantra is Vikas, Vikas, Vikas. And at the ground level, the Sangh Parivar is saying without Vinash, 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 we cannot maintain and take forward our Hindutva agenda. And this is really, these are the 2 pillars and the 2 strategies, a combined strategy on which the government is working. Therefore, the issue of the cow, we have seen it is shifted, not just the holy cow, now it is all such animals, such cattle. So whether it's a bull or a buffalo, these also have now been included because everybody knows, cow slaughter is banned in this country and it's mainly bulls or buffaloes which have been slaughtered, and even the exports are basically buffalo exports. It has never been cow meat exports or beef exports. So now that they have included the bull and the buller, it is directly affecting a very much wider section of people, particularly now those in the cattle trade. And there are so many big fairs which go on in India at particular seasons, and farmers come, they exchange cattle, they sell cattle, sometimes in a period of drought as there has been over the last 2 years. Selling their animals is perhaps one of the only means of survival. And then when things get a little better, they buy animals again. So there was going to be a fair in Bihar, and there was a fair, last December, and we found that the percentage of cattle which were bought and sold there was a huge decrease. Why is that? Because of the fear that there will be these cow protection committees patronized by the Sangh Parivar in different forms, who will then attack, and also not just attack, but there's an extortion racket also. So you give safe passage for cattle to move from one place to another. And what happened in Jharkhand, because we had a party delegation of the CPIM who went to both those villages and we met the family. And what happened there was perhaps one of the most cruel examples of what these so-called cow protection committees actually mean. Those 8 animals were bulls, there was not a single cow. And one of the traders, if you can call him a trader, he was a 12-year-old child. A 12-year-old child, Imtiaz, whose father, having met with an accident, could not herd the animals. It's a very deep forest. and there's also, it's a very stony path. So it's almost impossible for his father to have traversed that way. And therefore, this boy was standing in for his father. He took 8 of the animals and met the other cattle trader, who was 32-year-old, Majlong. It's very difficult for cattle traders to do anything alone. And we don't, realize the impact of the absence of secularism on just ordinary lives. I mean, they were telling me they have to plan to ensure that either neighbors come with them or another cattle trader. It's not like just going to the market and selling something. You have to really plan for it. Why? Because of the vigilante groups.
I mean, if you look at this entire issue of the beef ban and the cow slaughter and the attacks that have been carried on from Dadari now to Jharkhand, do you see also an ulterior motive not only of the polarization for turning country into the Hindu Rashtra, but pushing the minorities into economic marginalization? Because it's also a means for the minority community to earn a livelihood.
Well, that's not only limited to Muslims. There are many other, there are OBs, there are so many other cattle traders belonging to the Hindu community, which is why a BJP MLA from Maharashtra said he's totally against the ban, is precisely because in the entire Vidarbha region, Hindu farmers who want to sell their cattle are really finding that the cattle market is so down precisely because of these absolutely irrational bans and totally communal campaigns. But the point I'm making is that this is the second, now this whole context of nationalism. Now these feed into the idea of nationalism, brand, RSS. So you have this slogan, Bharat Mata Ki Jai. And what happened in Delhi is very, very closely linked to that. You have a slogan which suddenly is picked up as though this is the symbol of nationalism. Since when and for what? And why Bharat Mata Ki Jai? Precisely because historically it does have religious connotations. It is linked to a particular phase in our history where those who were in the freedom struggle believed that equating the nation with a mother and the mother with a goddess would be an instrument to mobilize opinion against the British. So that was a particular phase of the freedom struggle. Some people continued with that slogan. It's certainly not a slogan which is only given by the Sangh Parivar. It did have a much wider acceptance and use during the freedom struggle. However, there were so many others, and RSS, which had no part in the freedom struggle, is deliberately selecting a slogan which they can then manipulate in the way they want. And people like Owaisi, who responded to Bhagwat's, unnecessarily his call, with the way that he did, played the game according to the RSS and the fundamentalist, Muslim fundamentalist rules, because both of them benefit from communal their politics benefit from communal polarization. And what is the impact of it? We saw it in Delhi, where these 3 students, our party delegation met them. And today, in fact, I went to meet the chairperson of the Minority Commission and spoke to him about it, because these students are completely terrorized. They are students from Bihar. They are studying in a local madrasa in Delhi. They are living in an area where they don't really have that many contacts. And now that this has come in the press and people are talking about it, they are really scared about the impact on directly on their own lives, their security. How are they going to fight the case without any support? Because they are in a hostile environment created in the context of selective slogans. And now they are saying Bharat Mata Ki Jai. If you look at the walls of Delhi, they are saying Go Mata ko Rashtra
Pashu banao.
Mata banao. So this is the agenda, and this is something which has to be and is being identified.
the government ministers and even the Prime Minister, who loves to tweet on the cricket matches, fails to acknowledge these things, these attacks taking place. So on the same day he is tweeting about the cricket match, but the people being hanged in Jharkhand or being beaten up in Delhi, nobody is talking about it. So do you see a tacit consent of the government also in it?
Well, deafening silence is consent, because the BJP National Executive met a day after the hangings took place. The Chief Minister of Jharkhand was present in the National Executive Committee meeting, and there was not a word in the National Executive. They talked about nationalism. They wanted to teach the country RSS lessons about so-called nationalism, and they did not find it necessary, even in a word, to condemn the hanging of the Constitution on that tree in Balumat in Jharkhand, because their understanding is which opportunity can be created or found to promote a sectarian agenda of Hindutva.
Also, if when you are continuously talking about the nationalism, the Sangh Parivar and the BJP together is trying to appropriate various such figures of the freedom struggle who had nothing to do with either with the Sangh Parivar or their ideology, like Bhagat Singh. Then they are trying to appropriate Ambedkar. How do you see this agenda of theirs?
It's absolutely appalling. I don't know whether it has any credibility with the people of India or not, but everybody knows that the very basis of Bhagat Singh's martyrdom was precisely because he fought against such forces who he felt were playing the game of the British colonialists, and he was dead against them. And as far as the Constitution of India is concerned, it speaks for itself as to how Dr. Ambedkar was totally against the very concept of religion as a basis for the state, which is what the RSS believes in, and therefore they are poles apart. There is absolutely nothing in common with the two.
And RSS had no presence also in the entire freedom struggle. So
well, I would say they had a presence in that their presence was how to divide, and therefore in a way they played the game that the British was playing, which is divide and rule. And the Muslim fundamentalists on the one hand and the Hindu fundamentalists and communalists like the RSS on the other were basically helping the British in their game of weakening India and the unity of its people. Because when the unity of a people is weakened, obviously that is the very opposite of patriotism and this whole concept of nationalism, because the whole concept itself is a concept which is geared towards aggression against another, and that is when nationalism is evoked. So in the freedom struggle there was a context for nationalism, which was the fight against British colonialism. Today, if we want to understand the concept of nationalism, obviously it has to be linked to the defense of a sovereign nation against imperialism, but they would prefer to utilize that, using it to push an agenda which always sees Pakistan as the greatest enemy.
And also push their economic agenda side by side. Like recently they are bringing 100% FDI in e-retail. So on the other hand, they are also trying to open up the markets for that foreign investment, which sort of is also destabilizing the economy for the local level traders.
Absolutely, that is exactly the point, that why they can promote a nationalism which is so devoid of fighting the actual issues fundamental to the development of India, which must be a defense of our own economy against the predatory, I would say, economic invasions of big foreign capital, which is opening up the market entirely for them.
I would like to come back to the Jharkhand issue. You have submitted a memorandum to NHRC and also today to the Minority Commission. So, what are the demands that the CPM has raised in it?
Well, as far as Jharkhand is concerned, we have said that this has to be very closely monitored, the case itself, because there is an effort by the police to de-link it from any investigation into the activities of the crowd protection committees. And they are trying to make it out to be personal dispute or rivalry, where there is nothing of the sort. It is entirely a result of the crowd protection committees being filled with criminals who keep the symbol of the cow in front for their criminal extortionist activities. And it's very much linked to the slogans of the Cow Protection Committee. So they merge together. And these links are what the Jharkhand government and the Jharkhand police under the BJP government do not want revealed. And that is why that is a very critical aspect where the NHRC has to play a role. And of course, the issue of justice to the families, because their main breadwinners have been brutally killed in both the cases. So I gave you the background of this child Imtiaz, and therefore the adding insult to injury, the Chief Minister gives a compensation of 1 lakh rupees. What is this? It's a shame. So we have asked the NHRC to send a team to look at the reality of the situation of the families and to immediately bring them some relief.
I mean, this would be my last question, seeing the situation across the nation. What's the way ahead for the left, progressive, secular section of the society?
There are multiple issues which are linked to the fight for secular values, and as we have seen, as far as the cattle trade, as far as the leather trade, as far as many of the areas where the Hindutva agenda is literally snatching away livelihood of a vast section of people, including the farmers of India. So all these issues need to be taken together, and that is what we are doing. So we have the Kisan Sabha, we have the workers' unions, and coming together along with other organizations working among students, youth, women, Dalit and minority sections, to have a wider platform in which we can take up these issues. And today we have to use every single platform available to us to fight this menace to India.
That's a very positive note to leave on, and as the things proceed, we'll be coming back to you on such issues. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Brinda.